Okay guys, welcome back to Bassmaster once again. We're going back into, and I do apologise for a wait for one of the legendary location videos, and we're doing it today on one of my favourite venues, which is Toledo Bend. Let's start then with Alton, top northwest corner of the venue. This spot here in this little pocket, a very well-known spot. But I tend to fish quite a lot on this outside point here, get an abundance of fish, really active area, not just for largemouth of course, but for many other species. And you can see a few other little pockets of heat that come up around about this area as well, of where Alton has been caught. Just south of that, the tree stump spot, which everybody sort of knows in general, you can see a hive of activity there. And then a bit further down as well, a few other points where Alton has been caught in the past. Move back north then towards the ramp, or the port as it were. A lot of activity around that point here that you can see, and a few other sort of dots, a few other little locations starting to spring up of where Alton has been caught. I love fishing this area as well, these two little points in here inside this little pocket, and on pardon me, I do apologise, and on this corner there's a boat ramp that sticks out here that you go around and you get into this pocket as well. You can see a bit of activity there, and then we move into the northeast, and a few other little spots which a lot of people don't really tend to go that far out. They tend to fish a lot of the more closer points to the boat ramp. Move into the southeast corner then, and a couple of spots here. This is a good little spot that I've fished it quite a bit before. You get some good activity, and you'll see that in some of the other legendary fish, and a few other points popping up here as well. So of course, as always, do feel free to get out onto the venue, pause the video, and then sort of go out and put some markers on these locations if you haven't fished some of these previously, and you'll be able to try and hopefully get some of these big bass. Let's then move on to Chad, the second of the legendary bass fish on the venue. Again, a lot of these points are going to start popping up as you see a little bit of activity in here as well, as opposed to just here and on this outside point. But again, yeah, a lot of these spots are now going to start to repeat themselves. You can see tree stump area, this area, the near the boat ramp, but a few other interesting little pockets of activity. I'm just going to start scanning over these, because as we go through these legendary fish, you can see again here these 2 points exactly the same, very notorious for activity. But you can see these spots picking up. You'll need to get out to these spots yourself and obviously do a little bit of practice and try and get some of these legendary for yourself. But of course, do remember that temperature and weather does play a part in fish activity as well, and the location of where those fish will be at any one time. So don't just necessarily expect that you're going to go out here, play for an hour, and then start smashing legendaries. Yet there are still some tactics and some work that you do need to put in. We move over to the Gwendolyn, the third of the legendary bass fish. Bit of activity a bit further up northwest here. But again, these key points, we're just going to keep going over these. Some activity here, back by the boat ramp. Of course, tree stump area again popping up there. Very fun area to always go and try and fish for some of these bass. And again, a couple of interesting pockets of activity down here. And we'll just start scrolling through this area once more. Again, a hive of activity. And you can just pause the video, as I say, for any one of these fish. I'll try and do a timestamp as well in the comments and pin that comment, so you can fast forward to any of these particular fish if you need to. And then we go back into the southeast corner. And again, this area, I got one of my legendaries here actually. Yeah, so that is Gwendolyn. Lionel, again, these spots, interesting to see Lionel been caught up here previously. These areas around here, again, a hive of activity starting to repeat itself. Again, tree stump, and these 2 spots here repeating. You start to get the idea, guys. bit of activity here. Interesting to see a bit more activity here in the northeast, more so than some of the other fish that we've just gone over, and again in the southeast corner as well. So that's where you can bag Lionel. I actually got when I got Lionel, I got him down here. This was the area that I managed to bag him. It was a brand new spot. It was the first time I fished it, and I fished it for about an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I managed to smash Lionel and capture him. We move over to Lula. Again, repeating spots. I'm just going to go over these a little bit faster as they start to repeat themselves. Interesting to see a bit more activity up in this area here of where Lula's been caught previously. All these familiar spots down here, boat ramp area, a few areas popping up around here as well is interesting. This area here, which I love to fish. Northeast area as well, getting some activity, and right out here, probably in one of the furthest points, we can see that Lula's been caught. So maybe worth taking a journey out there, guys, at some time and see what you can find. And interesting that quite a bit of activity down in the southeast once more. We move over to Mabel, and again we're just going to start scanning over here. You're starting to see again, as I said, I'm just going to keep repeating myself because it's true, guys. Just a lot of these same points being of interest. These are areas that you need to get out and fish. You know, start placing some markers down. And one thing I would say as well, guys, when you get to an area and you place a marker down, if it's got good activity, you know, make a note of the temperature, place your marker, and then use the edit details of that marker to make a quick note of the temperature or the size of the fish or the lure or something that you use to capture that fish. And then you can use that as a reference point, because you can go back to the same point and it might be, say, 10 or 15 degrees cooler or colder than it was, and then those fish aren't there or they're just not biting. So it's important to make notes of these various things. We move over to Milton, and then Milton again. Interesting to see a bit of activity here. Again, similar spots, all rather repetitive now. Oh, pardon me. Interesting to see some very offshore points popping up here for Milton. Interesting indeed. So maybe that's something to think about when looking for Milton. All these spots here around by the boat ramp is being caught up as well. Northeast corner, and again a few offshore spots. So very interesting to see a bit of difference there with Milton compared to some of the other boss fish. We move over to Razer then, one of the big boys. Again, a lot of activity. All these similar spots starting to pop up. Good activity in here as well. This is interesting for Milton, around by the boat ramp, tree stump area, down in these 2 points here as well is interesting. Again, a couple of my favorite points up here that I love to fish. Northeast corner, good activity up here as well, a bit more so than some of the other fish. That's interesting to see. And then again, right out here. And again, a bit of offshore activity starting to show with a couple of these fish, which is pretty interesting. Move over to Rosie then, our penultimate fish of the original legendaries for Toledo Bend. And again, these key spots just all repeating themselves, but again, as I mentioned earlier, do take into account temperature, time of day, weather, as these fish will rotate and move into other locations perhaps not shown here. So there is still a good degree of search and destroy, if I can use that terminology. You do really need to search out some of these fish as they do move about. So, you know, just be aware of that. This is just a general guide and based upon some of the older reports of where these fish were caught. So a bit of work still required, guys. And then we move on to Shelia, the last fish that we're going to cover here in this video. All these points again, I just love fishing this point. It's just so many good fish you get out of here. Boat ramp area and around here active, tree stump, in here. In this area is a bit active as well. Move back to the northeast. A few interesting spots coming up once more. And then back down to the southeast here once more. But again, you can pause this video anytime, guys, to make reference of these points and then check out some of these areas for yourself. So that's going to be it then from Toledo Bend, guys. A couple of these legendaries I've managed to catch myself. I've still got a few to go, so I definitely need to get back out onto Toledo and start going after some of these legendaries again personally. But I hope this helps you. Check out the other legendary ones videos that I've done so far as well for other locations, and there'll be more to come, guys. Appreciate the support, appreciate the views, and I will see you again in the next one.